When two inseparable friends compete for the same prestigious university scholarship, envy creeps in and poisons everything. The morning breeze smelled like possibility. At 17, Elise Venter, a bright biracial girl with honey-brown skin, curly dark hair pulled into a tight bun and intelligent green eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, rushed downstairs in her modest home in Fair Hollow. She clutched the envelope from Ravencliff University, her dream school. Her best friend Riley Lane already received her acceptance. Elise prayed this letter held the same fate. Elise's heart dropped. Waitlisted, the word mocked her. She felt a strange wave of shame. She had worked harder than anyone else in her class, especially Riley, who was undeniably brilliant, yes, but never as obsessed with perfect grades, deadlines, or volunteering. Riley was the golden girl, chestnut-skinned, sleek, straight black hair, tall with perfect posture and a magnetic smile. Elise adored her, until this moment. Something inside Elise cracked. That night, Elise smiled when she congratulated Riley, but deep inside another feeling stirred, a dangerous one. Riley's joy knew no bounds. "We'll still be friends no matter where you go," she promised, her dark eyes glowing with innocence. Elise forced a smile, but in her room she stared at the login screen of the Ravencliff scholarship portal. Her fingers trembled. She had Riley's email password, an old shared joke between them from freshman year. Riley never changed it. Elise didn't want to do anything bad. She just wanted to see her file, to understand what set Riley apart. Curiosity turned to temptation. Inside Riley's application, Elise found a single file, an essay she had helped revise. Elise skimmed, then paused. It was the wrong version, full of unedited paragraphs and passive voice. Why had they accepted her? Elise clicked through the portal, and then she saw it. Edit submission. Her finger hovered over the button. She told herself it was only a tiny change. But Elise didn't make tiny changes. She rewrote parts of the essay, subtly enough to seem like a sloppy last-minute job. She introduced clunky phrases, removed impactful metaphors. Then she clicked save. Immediately, guilt stabbed her chest. She backed away from the desk, lips trembling. What had she done? 3 days later, Riley knocked on her door, tears streaking her perfect skin. Her voice cracked. "I don't know what happened. They pulled my scholarship." Elise feigned shock, wrapping her arms around Riley like a sister. But her insides felt like fire. She hadn't meant for this to happen, or had she? Riley's family was devastated. Her single mother, who worked double shifts as a nurse, had pinned all hopes on that scholarship. Without it, Ravencliff was impossible. Riley tried to apply for emergency aid, but it was too late. The funding had gone to another student. She never once suspected Elise. Elise buried herself in rehearsals for the school play, in volunteering, in everything that could distract her. But guilt turned into paranoia. Every time Riley mentioned trying to get her file reviewed, Elise's heart sank. What if someone at the university looked at the timestamp? What if Riley started digging? And yet Elise smiled through it all. She even helped Riley apply to a community college nearby, offering her moral support. It wasn't friendship anymore. It was penance. Weeks passed. Elise received an unexpected letter. Her name had been moved up from the wait list. A spot had opened. A scholarship had been reassigned to her. Her parents wept with joy. Elise couldn't even smile. Riley, unaware of Elise's role, hugged her so tightly Elise thought she might shatter. "You deserve it," Riley whispered. Elise wanted to scream, to confess everything, but cowardice wrapped around her throat like chains. Riley went to the local college. Elise packed for Ravencliff. The day she boarded the train, Riley came to say goodbye. "I know this isn't how we imagined it," she said softly, "but you'll do amazing things." Elise nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. The train doors closed. She had everything she wanted, so why did it feel like her soul was rotting? Ravencliff University was everything Elise had dreamed of. Ivy-covered stone buildings, ambitious students buzzing with excitement, and professors who spoke like visionaries. But none of it felt real. The moment she stepped onto campus, she became someone else. The girl everyone believed she was. Hardworking, brilliant, deserving. But under that mask, Elise felt like an imposter walking on stolen ground. She avoided mirrors and flinched every time someone praised her. During her first week, she received an invitation to the Elite Writing Society, the same one Riley had dreamed of joining. The acceptance email felt like a slap. Guilt began to leak into every moment of her day, during lectures, in the dining hall, even in her sleep. She dreamed of Riley's face twisted in betrayal over and over again. She kept replaying the moment she clicked save, and every time she did, it became harder to pretend it was a mistake, that it wasn't deliberate, that she didn't sabotage her best friend's life for her own benefit, and worst of all, no one knew. She was rewarded for her betrayal, celebrated. The silence became her punishment. Elise tried to bury herself in schoolwork, but then one morning a simple email shook her to the core. Subject: Appeal to Ravencliff Admissions Center, Riley Lane. The message wasn't meant for her, of course, but Riley had forwarded Elise a copy, asking if she could review it before Riley sent it to the university. Elise read it once, then again. Her hands began to tremble. Riley was requesting an investigation. She believed a technical error had corrupted her application file and suspected her final essay had been altered. She wasn't accusing anyone, yet, but she was asking them to retrieve the backup copy of her original submission for comparison. Panic gripped Elise like a vice. If Ravencliff conducted an internal check, the timestamp on the edited essay would lead directly to Elise's IP address. Her digital fingerprint was all over that file. Elise had two choices: stay silent and hope the investigation led nowhere, or act before it was too late. Her guilt had been eating away at her for months. Now her secret was hanging by a thread, and Riley was holding the scissors. Elise skipped her classes and wandered through the campus gardens, drowning in a flood of thoughts. The walls were closing in. She opened her notes app and began typing a message to Riley. A confession. She wrote everything. How she accessed the account, what she changed, how she never meant for things to go so far, how she hated herself for it every day. When she finished, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. Her thumb hovered over send, but something stopped her: fear. She imagined the fallout, expulsion, her family's disappointment, losing her scholarship. And Riley's face, twisted not in betrayal this time, but in absolute disgust. She deleted the message. But guilt has a way of finding new cracks to seep through. Elise couldn't sleep that night. She couldn't eat the next day. Her vision blurred during lectures, and her stomach churned whenever her phone buzzed. She had buried the truth once, but now it clawed at the surface, more vicious than ever. And the worst part was knowing she still couldn't tell Riley, not yet. 2 months later, while Elise was shelving books at the campus library, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Didn't think I'd see you here." It was Riley. Elise turned, heart stammering. Riley looked different, older, more confident. She explained she was visiting for an open seminar series. She had earned a grant from a tech firm sponsoring students from underprivileged colleges to attend Ravencliff workshops. Elise's stomach turned. Riley was here, in her world, close enough to expose her secret. They sat on a bench and caught up. Riley talked about her life, her part-time jobs, her long commute, how hard it was juggling everything. Yet her voice held no resentment. "I still think about what happened," Riley admitted. "I just wish I knew how it all went so wrong." Elise forced a nod, her chest tightening with every word. The conversation ended, but Elise knew the clock was ticking now. Riley was back, and questions were coming with her. That night, Elise stood in front of her dorm bathroom mirror. She stared at her reflection and barely recognized herself. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her once glowing skin looked pale and tired. She touched the edge of the mirror, wondering when exactly the transformation had happened. From ambitious student to thief in a borrowed future. She had everything she thought she wanted, but it had come with a cost she could no longer justify. The university wasn't her sanctuary anymore. It was a cage built from her own choices. Riley's return made everything worse. Her kindness, her success despite the setback, her complete lack of suspicion. Elise realized something she hadn't admitted to herself until now. She wasn't afraid of being caught. She was afraid of what it meant if she wasn't, because then she'd have to live with the truth that she had destroyed the most important friendship of her life, and never had to pay for it. But maybe it wasn't too late to start. Elise stayed up all night, pacing her dorm floor, the weight of her secret pressing like a stone against her chest. Riley was back in her life, even if only for a few days. It was a chance, maybe the last one she'd ever have, to do the right thing. But what did that look like? Confessing could destroy everything: her academic future, her family's pride, her own fragile self-image. But continuing the lie was worse. It was poison in her bloodstream. At 3:47 a.m., Elise opened a blank email window. She didn't address it to anyone. She just started typing. No excuses, no justifications, just the truth. She saved it as a draft. The next day, she didn't go to class. She wandered campus in a fog, passing buildings that once inspired awe but now looked cold and judgmental. Everyone around her seemed so sure of themselves, so clean, and she felt like a fraud among saints. When she returned to her dorm that evening, the draft email was still open. She stared at it for a long time. Her mouse hovered over the send button. But she couldn't do it, not yet. Instead, she left her room and walked, not to escape, but to find Riley. Elise found her in the seminar hall's common room, alone with a notebook and a cup of tea. Riley looked up, surprised, and smiled. I was hoping I'd see you again before I left." They sat together. Silence stretched between them, awkward and full of unsaid things. Riley spoke first. "You know what's funny? When I lost the scholarship, I didn't cry right away. I just kept thinking, did I mess up that badly? I obsessed over it for weeks." Elise stayed silent. "I kept rewriting the essay in my head, wondering which line made them change their minds. It broke me a little." Elise's throat burned, but Riley wasn't finished. "But then I realized something. Maybe that chapter wasn't mine to live. Maybe the version of me that got into Ravencliff wasn't who I'm supposed to be. I've met incredible people at my college, learned things I never would have otherwise." Elise blinked back tears. "I still believe everything happens for a reason," Riley said softly. Elise wanted to believe that too. But what if the reason was betrayal? What if it had never been fate, just her own selfish hands pulling strings? That night, Elise returned to her dorm and opened Riley's file again. Yes, she still had access. She hadn't dared delete it, hadn't even dared look at it since that day. But now she opened the original version she'd tampered with. Reading it again, she saw how beautiful Riley's words had been. Honest, raw, vulnerable. What she had done wasn't just sabotage, it was erasure. She had taken Riley's voice and replaced it with something false. Elise couldn't breathe. She knew now that there was no redemption in silence, no healing in pretending. She printed both versions of the essay, the original and the altered one. She slipped them into a folder and sealed it shut. The next morning, she walked straight to the Office of Academic Integrity. Her fingers trembled as she handed the folder to the receptionist. "This needs to go to the dean," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's important." She didn't leave her name, not yet, but she had taken the first step. 2 days later, Elise received an official summons from the dean's office. It had begun. Her hands shook as she entered the imposing building. Every hallway felt longer than the last. When she was finally called in, a panel of administrators waited in a sterile room with files in front of them. They asked her if she had any knowledge about the suspicious edits on a past applicant's file. Elise could have lied, could have said she didn't know, but she didn't. She confessed to everything, how she had accessed Riley's email, what she changed and why. She didn't cry, she didn't beg, she just told the truth. The room was silent when she finished. There were consequences, they said. Likely expulsion, possibly permanent academic blacklisting. She nodded. She left the room lighter than she had felt in months. Her future had crumbled, but for the first time, her soul didn't feel like it was rotting from the inside. 2 days after her confession, Elise got a call from Riley. Her voice was quiet. "You told them." Elise said nothing. There were no words she could offer that would make it better. "I read the report," Riley continued. "I know what you did, how long you kept it from me." Still, Elise said nothing. Riley's voice cracked. "Why, Elise?" Elise swallowed hard. "Because I was afraid you'd get everything, and I'd be left behind. I was jealous, and I was weak." There was a long pause. "I trusted you," Riley said finally. "You were like my sister." "I know," Elise whispered. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, I just needed you to know the truth." Riley ended the call without saying goodbye, and Elise understood why. She had finally told the truth. But truth doesn't heal everything. Some wounds stay open, but even open wounds stop bleeding eventually. Word of Elise's academic dishonesty spread quickly through Ravencliff's campus. Students whispered in lecture halls and cafeterias. Professors who once praised her avoided eye contact. The elite writing society revoked her invitation. She was no longer the rising star, just a cautionary tale. Her expulsion was formalized by the end of the week. Her parents were devastated. Her mother cried for days. Her father, usually stoic, couldn't even look at her. The shame she brought on her family was a punishment deeper than any academic consequence. They had sacrificed so much to get her here. And Elise had thrown it all away. Elise packed her things in silence. No goodbyes, no farewell parties, just the slow, heavy process of dismantling a life built on a lie. She returned to Fairhollow. Her hometown hadn't changed, but she had. She felt like a stranger in her own room. And the worst part, she missed Riley. Not the idea of her, but the real, living presence of the friend who once trusted her with everything. That trust was gone now, and Elise didn't know if it would ever return. Back home, Elise avoided public places. She didn't go out. She didn't scroll through social media. Every reminder of what she lost reopened the wound. But one rainy afternoon, she sat at her old desk and began to write. Not to the university, not to the dean, to Riley. She poured everything into the letter. Not just an apology, but the full truth of who she had become and how she had destroyed the one thing she loved most, their friendship. It was messy, rambling, unpolished. But it was real. She placed it in an envelope and addressed it. but she didn't send it. Instead, she left it on her nightstand and stared at it for days, wondering if sending it would make anything better. Then one morning it was gone. Her mother had found it and mailed it without Elise's knowledge. Now the letter was out there, and Elise had no way to take it back. A week passed, then another. No reply. Elise had accepted that Riley would never respond, and maybe that was what she deserved. But one evening her phone lit up with a message from Riley. Just one sentence. "I read your letter." Elise stared at the screen, heart thudding. She didn't know how to reply. Was this an opening or a closing? A few minutes later, another message arrived. "Meet me at the old track, tomorrow, 5 p.m. It was the same place where they used to run laps together in middle school, where they trained for competitions, where they shared secrets and snacks and dreams. Elise typed a simple response, "I'll be there." The sun was just beginning to dip behind the trees when Elise arrived at the old high school track. The place was nearly empty. Just one figure waited by the bleachers, Riley. She looked the same and yet entirely different, stronger, sharper, like someone who had been through a storm and made it to the other side. Elise approached slowly. Riley didn't smile. For a long time neither of them spoke. Then Riley said, "Do you know what hurt the most?" Elise shook her head, afraid to speak. "It wasn't the scholarship. It wasn't even the essay. It was you pretending to be my friend while you were tearing me down." Elise nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I hated you," Riley said, "for a long time, but I also missed you." Elise sobbed. "I was so lost. I thought if I didn't win, I'd disappear. I never meant to become this person." Riley's eyes glistened. "I'm not saying I forgive you, not yet. But you told the truth, that matters." She walked past Elise, then paused. "I don't want revenge. I just want to heal, for both of us." And then she was gone. Months passed. Elise didn't reapply to university right away. Instead, she volunteered at a youth center, tutoring underprivileged students with college dreams. She shared her story, not to gain sympathy but to warn them. She worked hard, quietly, away from attention. Her parents slowly began to speak with her again. The silence at the dinner table gave way to conversation. The shame didn't vanish, but it softened. One day she received a package in the mail. Inside was a book of essays from top students across the country. One of them was written by Riley. Her essay was called "Grace After Fire." The last line read, "Even the deepest betrayal can be the soil for growth, if you plant forgiveness instead of vengeance." Elise held the book to her chest and cried. She didn't have her old life back. She didn't have Ravencliff, but she had a chance to become someone better. And that, she realized, might be more valuable than any scholarship. If you found this story powerful, moving, or eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional journeys, moral twists, and unforgettable characters. Your support means everything.